A deadly crash, a controversial verdict, and one question that still remains: was justice truly served? We are here to break down the Mackenzie Shirilla case. This is No Contest, the Kolsrud King and Reid Report. I'm Claudia King. I have my lovelies with me, Josh Kolsrud and Holland Reid. How are you today, guys?
Oh, great. Yeah, it's so good to be back. How are you guys doing?
Amazing. In this case, this is the one to come back on, right? Right?
If there is one to come back on, like I said, the gang's back together. We had life has been lifing, but if there is a case to come back on, it is this
It
one.
is this one. Well, we're going to jump right into it because this case is all over the place right now, and it has kind of resurfaced because of the Netflix documentary. So if you aren't familiar with this case, where have you been, first off? But in 2022, a 17-year-old named Mackenzie Shirilla, I think she goes by Kenzie. So Kenzie had a vehicle crash with her boyfriend and a friend in the vehicle. Both young men were killed. Kenzie was not, and she is now serving a 15 to life sentence for double murder. Josh, I want to start with you. Give me your overall thoughts on the case and weave into those thoughts what you think about them choosing a bench trial.
So I think that, when everybody heard about this case, instinctively we all think back, man, I had a crazy ex once. I wonder if that person would have ever done this. Like we were all kind of thinking that, like, right? Like I can almost feel like this could have happened to me or somebody else, especially, a high school romance where emotions are out of control, hormones are everywhere. And it just seemed like something out of a horror movie. And in complete Netflix fashion, Hollywood fashion, I mean, there's so many bizarre things that happened in this case. Things like a defense attorney requesting a bench trial as opposed to a jury trial on a case this significant, when the entire point of the defense was to go against one element of homicide. So just to let the viewers know, there are a lot of different ways you can commit homicide. And the way that Kenzie was charged was intentional and knowing, which is first degree murder. It's the one that carries with it, in most states, the worst punishment. So the prosecution said that she intentionally and knowingly rammed her car into an immovable object to kill the passengers. And so the defense thought, well, we can't argue that it wasn't her, right? She's not like she has an alibi. So what do we do? Well, we're going to say that it was reckless, that this was not intentional, this wasn't knowing, that it was reckless or even negligent. So if it's reckless, it's a manslaughter, and then negligent is negligent homicide. And that was their strategy. But in order to get there, they had to do a couple things that they didn't do. Number one, they didn't present any evidence of this supposed diagnosis to POTS syndrome. Now, POTS syndrome is like kind of like narcolepsy, where you lose consciousness and there are periods of brief amnesia. Now, the defense attorney brought this up at trial without evidence in front of a judge who is smart enough not to get distracted from the facts. I mean, that may have worked in front of a jury, but not a judge. And if you're going before a judge, you need to have an expert and you need to have a diagnosis. You need to have both of those. So you need to have an expert to come in and say that, look, this type of thing that happened is consistent with POTS syndrome, and then explain the reasons why they think that she was suffering from that at that specific period of time. And the expert would need to rely on medical evidence, a diagnosis. So, that's certainly glaring at me in the face. Like, why didn't they do this? also, they knew what the prosecution's theory of the case was going to be. They knew what the car's black box said, yet they didn't hire their own expert to give an alternative explanation to what that data could mean. So they just accepted on face value what that data is. When, I've used black boxes before as a prosecutor, and, a lot of it is interpretation. And, they certainly could have had an expert come in there and give an alternative explanation that goes along with the evidence. And they didn't do that. So it wasn't surprising that she was found guilty. Now, there are a couple of things I was surprised about. I was surprised that the judge gave her 15 to 30 as opposed to 30 to life.
Right. That right there, Josh, that was my biggest, are you serious right now? Yep. That was one of the, amongst other things, but I'm glad you just said that, because I was thinking the same thing. I was like, that's insane for two lives lost. 15,
exactly.
30, that was just ridiculous to me.
And if you watch the Netflix documentary, they interview the parents of the backseat passenger, the victim.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And you remember what he said? He's like, we need to know that, my child's death had meaning in itself, that it wasn't combined with somebody else. And that's a consecutive sentence.
There you go.
When you have two deaths,
yes,
it deserves a consecutive sentence. If you have the courage to find her guilty of those two counts, you got to find her, you got to do it 30 to life. But, their fate has a strange way of showing its face. So on appeal, her attorneys, after they supposedly got new evidence showing that there were text messages with Kenzie saying that Dominic had tried grabbing the wheel 2 weeks prior to the crash, among other things, the appeal was 1 day late. And because of that, it's not going to be reviewed. So unless she is able to, win the lottery in terms of, appellate courts accepting her case, she's not getting a new trial because of that huge error by her attorneys.
Yeah.
So
I have more questions for you, but I want to hit Holland real quick and talk about this from the pop culture and social media perspective, because that was a big part of her life. Was she wanted to be famous. She wanted to be Insta famous or TikTok famous. She had this little friend who, has a big TikTok following. Do you think that has positively or negatively affected the public viewpoint and perception at this point?
Ooh, you and Claudia and the loaded questions. Okay, here we go. So if I can start on two different points of what you just said. First and foremost, this is someone that clearly wanted to be famous, wanted the attention. She wanted this notoriety of whatever version of reality that she lived in. And it's very clear. It's very clear, unfortunately, even with her parents on the back end.
They're crazy. Yeah.
The jail, Josh, the calls, they're talking in code. They're talking about, you made it to the UK. You're on the Daily Mail. Kim Kardashian. Well, let's get her involved. So that sends a direct message to me as a consumer of true crime, which let's also say this is the most sensationalized version of true crime. Now, when you're dealing with the blurred lines of public perception versus actual facts, like Josh lays down the facts, I just lay down the opinion as a consumer of true crime. But at the end of the day, you're being judged in public opinion. So I'm not doing 6-7, but where are those lines blurred? Because this is something, a story that played out in real time, played out on social media, played out in these interviews. And now we went from being sympathetic, empathetic to this young girl that was involved in a crash, to now dealing with someone that we're like, wait a minute, we love an evil character in a story. We love the villain. We love the villain. But the redemption of the villain is not happening because she has zero empathy. She's not whatever, right? So I'm going down the rabbit hole because as someone that I love true crime for this reason, because the dramatics and the stories and the layers that go into this. Yeah, I'm looking at the parents going, what is wrong with you guys? You're enablers. You're insane. I'm looking at the Davion's father. He's broken, like broken. He trying to make, a legacy for his son on the back end of all of this. And then you have, the sister, the new wife, and the breakdowns of all of these characters. And I hate to say that, but when you're dealing with someone that's just watching this on the outside looking in, we look at them as characters, but these are real lives. These are real, true lives that are being affected. And this girl, Mackenzie Shirilla, whatever she wants to go by. Now she has a new accent. She's in prison. I'm sorry. She's like ghetto fabulous. And I'm like, girl,
can we discuss that really quickly?
Yeah.
I don't want this to come across rude, but why is she Hispanic all of a sudden?
All of a sudden, now you like Boricua? That's what we're doing. We have an accent now. Like you got baby hairs. Me and my family and everyone that I know, we're watching it and we're going, this is not the same person. So now, as a consumer of true crime, we're looking at characters developing with the sentencing. She changed. In court, she changed. Her behavior, she changed. The documentary changed an entire. I said, oh my God, she lived. She ran a red light or whatever. Well, now we know that didn't happen. She ran a stop. That didn't happen. We know that at the end, Josh, as you said, that the gears were shifting in the black box. I believe, because there was a case in Atlanta of 3 men that all lost their lives, and the black box showed at the very end of them crashing, someone was trying to shift the gears to stop the car. And I believe the same thing happened with this case. So from a social media perspective and entertainment perspective, unfortunately, we all are watching and we're like chomping at the bit for the revelations. But this girl, she's sitting there and she has zero remorse. She's a whole different ethnicity. I don't even know what.
Hey, Holland, did you hear what she said about social?
What did she say?
So, tell me your opinion about this.
Sure.
So in the Netflix documentary, Kenzie actually talks about her fake persona on social media. And she said that, it's not really who she is. So how much of that goes into the psychology of somebody who, is just so used to getting their way or the highway to them committing murder? I mean, where does this come from?
So, I'm long-winded, and I'll keep this very short. I believe there's a fake it till you make it social media aspect of getting things done, but then I think there's a psychosis with social media, especially a personality like hers, where she is putting on the front, and very much like that mother that was like, "Oh, I'm the perfect mother," but she's abusing her children. It's very sure what you can fake it till you make it on social media. But then when you are a sociopath and you have ill intent and you are simply a criminal, I don't give a damn what your social media says. At the end of the day, you are what you are, and you're going to break the law. You're going to hurt someone, if not someone yourself. And that has nothing to do. I think social media is now a vessel for someone to believe that they're perfectly fine. And that's what this girl did. She's doing all the things, but also
she did seem surprised when she was arrested.
Oh my God,
yes.
I'm so pretty. I'm so thin. I'm so enabled. My parents don't think anything's wrong with me. I'm perfectly fine. BS, BS, BS. And nobody checked her. And this poor guy was trying to get out of this relationship. And this, you can speak to this, Claudia, all day. He was doing all the right things to get out of that relationship. And unfortunately, he didn't get out in time. And I've been in a situation like that where someone was like, I'll run this to the ground. I'll throw. The thing is, it takes that one instant for someone to be extra, whatever. And then that's it. And we saw it happen in real time. And I think that's the obsession, entertainment wise. Not to bring up Will Smith, you saw he lost his mind. He went on stage and smacked the guy, Chris Rock. It takes that split second for someone to lose their. So,
Josh, I want to know from a legal perspective, these shifting personalities and shifting nationalities, really, at this point. Let's say she does somehow, some way, miraculously get a new trial. Does this performative aspect of her behavior that continues, does that factor in at all legally?
Well, it's a good question. So, if this does go to trial, the number one thing that people are looking at now, right, is the lack of remorse. But if you're going to trial, you're proclaiming your innocence, you would expect somebody to have some self-righteousness because they know they didn't do something that they're being accused of doing. So, I don't think, unless she's talking about the facts of the case, that it's going to be able to be used against her in a way where it can really negatively hit her, except for at a possible sentencing hearing after she's found guilty again.
Again.
There you go. Yeah.
Well, let me ask you. Sorry. I'm sorry. So let me ask you this. If she's trying to say, I did not do this, there was no intention, it was a POTS episode, whatever. But at the same time, she is saying, I have no recollection of what happened. I don't remember, I remember getting in the car. And then I remember waking up in the ambulance or whatever. So those two things can't be true at the same time, because you can't say, I know that I didn't mean to do it, but I don't remember what happened.
But I don't remember. Thank you.
So talk about that from a legal perspective of was that a bad idea, a bad strategy?
So that's certainly an argument that prosecutors use very effectively. The selective memory of defendants. They seem to have a lot of times a foggy memory about the bad stuff, but they remember the good stuff pretty well. The way that you can get around this, if you're her, is through an expert witness to say that, look, it's not uncommon for people to remember everything up until the incident of when the POTS syndrome attacks. And then after that, your memory goes blank. And that's consistent with people suffering from POTS syndrome. So that would be a way to kind of get around that. And another thing that they should have done is, that the prosecution is going to bring in all of these crazy statements and communications and text messages. I mean, I read a piece the other day that said there were 70,000 text messages between the two. She has to testify and give some context in there, because if we're just looking at the text messages by themselves, maybe even out of context, she looks like a crazy person. And if you're going to mitigate that situation, you have to add context. You have to have an explanation. So, if this goes to trial again, I fully expect her to testify, to give an explanation to all of those really damning text messages that came to light at trial.
Mm-hmm. Claudia, can I ask you a question?
Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry. No, I wanted, off of Josh's statement right there about that she has to reconcile these text messages, these threats, this abuse, right? So this is, okay, let's just do the obvious. This is a young white woman, skinny, thin, whatever.
She's Hispanic now, so she's brown now.
Right. I'm like, what? So, and then you have a black male in the car that's just happenstance because of the proximity, right? Adjacent friend, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have her boyfriend. I don't care about the nationality. I'm getting to the point of the stereotypical psychological behavior when someone looks at abuse. And
Mm-hmm.
when you're looking at someone that looks like her, and you say, no, she's equally an abuser and abusive. How do you, Josh, you can jump in this, please. I'm just asking the question. Like, if I'm prosecuted, like I have to make her a monster, but I have to make her a believable monster, but she looks like she does. And the text messages reconciling that, right? And then her behavior, that's a little different. That's a different conversation. I guess we'll get to that, I'm sure. But when I look at my son, who is almost 6'8", black male, he wouldn't hurt a fly. And he had one relationship that this girl smacked him, and she was a smaller white girl. And I said, run for the hills. She's an abuser, right? So, but imagine how that ends up in court or in whatever. How does this case on the social media aspect, with her being how she is, how do we believe that she is the abuser? What do you?
I'll tell you.
Help me.
So what did it for me was the video of her at the front door of their shared apartment
and being crazy,
yeah.
right? Okay.
When she was banging on the door and yelling that she was going to get in there by any means necessary, that she was going to break into the house, break into his car, commit burglary, robbery, murder, everything you can think of. There's no context that she could testify to explain that away. I mean, it was really telling. And you look at her, while you're listening to this, and it's impossible not to look at her after that as like a nice, meek, little white girl. She looks like she's a little cray cray.
Exactly. And that's where I would come from as well, is Holland, it's not a traditional case, because she has showed us exactly who she is. So I just watched on the plane home a movie called Housemaid. Fantastic.
Yes.
That hasn't seen it, it's amazing. But in that case, the abuser was super buttoned up, attractive, intelligent, and left no clues. Right?
Fantastic.
Zero clues outside of the relationship. So that one would be tough. Whereas Mackenzie, she showed us exactly who she is. And I find it very telling that Dom felt it necessary to do that, to record that.
To record it because he knew.
And we don't know what else he did record, right? Like, we haven't seen everything. So we don't know what else was out there.
I just wanted to button that up because that's a conversation that I have in multiple different communities, same-sex relationships, interracial relationships. And it's very poignant because it's not seen the way, like, we saw it. Like it's all the power dynamics, right? And it doesn't matter what it is. Abuser is an abuser is an abuser.
Right.
I just wanted to say that.
And even to the point where, so the text messages, Josh, that you mentioned, those ones that have since been discovered that show Dom trying to wreck the car. If you're listening and not watching, I just did like 47 air quotes because I think it's all BS. I think that was actually gaslighting and abuse for her when she sent those text messages, because allegedly during that drive, Dom called his mother and was like, she's driving crazy. She says she's going to kill me, whatever. And so I think that was yet another abusive maneuver on her part to send those text messages after the fact to be like, oh, Dom's crazy. He tried to kill me. She was trying to protect herself.
Yes. And so anybody that's watching this, everyone says, what's Holland's credentials? I have an opinion. That's my credential. I have a voice and I have an opinion. Those are my credentials. So whatever. Kiss
But they're
my
good.
ass. But let me say this. Do you know, I told you this, and Claudia, we talked about this privately, but she sent a series of text messages after her abuse and said, Holland, why would you do that? I'm just trying to talk to you. Why are you like, it was kicking down the door. I never did it. All these things.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember like, oh my God, she's painting her story.
Her narrative, right. I think that's what Kenzie was doing.
And I think that's what Kenzie was doing. And I only share this because I know, like, listen, I'm cuckoo in the best way, but I'm not abusive crazy, period. But when I listen to these stories and I go, this is not a far stretch for any of us. It can happen to all of us in that, right? For different reasons. So I just wanted to say that because, yeah, I have to say that.
Josh, I want to go back to the experts that you mentioned. Do you think maybe they tried and they could not find anyone that would give the testimony that they needed regarding both the pots and maybe the vehicle data? What are your thoughts on that?
That's certainly a possibility. Just because your client says they have some malady or syndrome doesn't mean that it actually exists. And every attorney owes a duty of candor to the court, and you can't present false evidence or testimony. So, unless there was a prior diagnosis, which, honestly, I don't think there was, because if there was, I feel like we would have known about it.
We would have heard more than just from her mother.
Absolutely. Oh,
they would have said it during the documentary.
Can we get into the parents at some point? Can we get into the?
Oh, yes.
That's going to be next.
Please.
Yep.
Please talk about the pot stuff too.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, watching the parents, especially at the beginning, I'm talking about Mackenzie's parents.
Oh my God.
Who literally said, that they allowed their daughter to actively use marijuana and pot in high school. When obviously studies have shown that marijuana use for adolescent brains, that means people under the age of 21,
underdeveloped,
has such a huge deleterious effect on their memories, short-term memory, and that it affects them forever. And they seemed overjoyed by the fact that they allowed their daughter to do this.
Oh my
and how could you not at least think where did this craziness come from Mackenzie? And was it in part because of her parents and what they allowed her to do, including when she's 17 and living with somebody older than her? Yeah, which is statutory rape in most states. So, that was bizarre as well.
They were going to get married. They were going to be together forever. I'm like, this is your daughter at 16, 17 years old. And you're talking about he was the man in. I'm sorry. I'm not a traditionalist. I'm not perfect. I'm not anything, but I will say this. Hell no. And the fact that this father, I'm watching them and I'm going, you are probably two of the most enabling, maybe POTS syndrome heads, POTS heads, whatever that I've ever seen. I was like, the only pot that is happening is what you gave your daughter.
Do you want to know who I believe the day after this documentary on Netflix came out, who was like the happiest parent in the world? The lady from the Unknown Number documentary that catfished her daughter. Because she's like, hallelujah, there's worse parents than me. And now the focus is going to be on them. And I can be clear for a minute. I'm not the worst right now. These parents, it's horrible. And even, Josh, I want you to talk a little bit about this regarding the sentencing. So when mom gets up there and has the audacity to say, well, Davion was a new friend. And the judge was like, so his life meant less? And then I really thought we were going to get the 30 years after that, and we still didn't. But Josh, what are your thoughts on the sentence? I mean, I know you already talked about your thoughts on the sentence, but like, it went so poorly with the character witnesses. Why do you think the judge didn't go with the 30? How can she think that Kenzie has redeeming qualities? Is this what we're thinking?
So I think that what struck a chord with the judge was Mackenzie's age. That she's 17, she was impulsive, and the judge didn't want 3 lives to be completely ruined from this incident. And despite the judge's strong language, which I thought was appropriate, her actions didn't follow her words. Mm-hmm. And as a judge, you want to have the strength of your convictions. And it seems a little hypocritical that a judge could believe what this judge said about Mackenzie and then give a sentence like she did of 15 to 30. Because if you actually believed what this judge said about Mackenzie, she would have to give a consecutive sentence, period. So I think that a big part of this was her age. If she was 10 years older, she probably would have gotten the 30, I hope. She certainly deserved it for justice, especially after you hear from the victims' families. My God, I mean, how could you not have the heartstrings pulled on listening to them? I mean, they were so genuine. And I mean, and to play the devil's advocate, when we listen to Mackenzie's parents, when you believe something wholeheartedly, even though you're wrong, and it's your daughter, I mean, you're gonna minimize and you're gonna try to fit a square peg into a round hole because that's your reality. So, like, I don't necessarily blame them for saying that stuff, only because I hear it all the time. And it's not an uncommon thing to hear from families at sentencing. But, I would have liked to hear something more from Mackenzie, a little bit more contrition, which you didn't hear an ounce of there. It was just feeling sorry for me in my life, which is, completely narcissistic and not what a judge wants to hear.
Holland, I want to hear your thoughts on the parents, and I want you to specifically talk about one of the things that Dad said, and it was talking about, going to have to pick her up at school because she had allegedly done something wrong, and he said, "Did you do it?" And she said no, and I believed her, and that's good enough for me. So talk about Dad from that perspective, and how that behavior can affect who she is today.
So I'm only doing this for you, Claudia, because I have to.
I love it.
Because, okay, parenting is, it's not up for discussion because every human, every person, all of us, right? We have all of our different histories and how we parent and why we parent the way we parent, right? I can complain about my mother, my father, my grandmother, my grandfather, whatever. You can do the same. Everybody can do the same. Josh can do whatever. But when you're on the outside looking in and you see something so weird and enabling, and also like you're not helping this girl. And I can only equate this or like align this to when my son would lie to me about little silly stuff in elementary school, middle school, high school, whatever. I would check him on it and be like, "You're lying to me," whatever. They have zero, I would say, authority over this girl. She got away with everything, and that allowed X, Y, and Z. And I think that's why it ended up where it's ending up. And it's still ending up where it's ending up. So nobody's perfect. These parents clearly had hell on wheels on their hands, right? And that's what you got. That's what you gave birth to. You let her do drugs in high school. What the hell? I'm not judging you. He's like, I don't care if you do dope. Well, maybe a little bit. Maybe a little bit. I can talk about my personal life. I never have I never. My parents, like, they would have had me by a chokehold, right? But the brain development thing you were talking about, that's challenge that affects everything. But this girl had serious mental health issues, and then you exacerbated it with drug and alcohol abuse, and you were okay with it as a parent. She's smoking weed online in camera. She's doing drugs and whatever in her bedroom, probably a few feet away from you. And then she moves in with a grown man who then was like, I can't handle her. Let me send her back. So all of that is like looking at the parents going, it's very serious, but it's also very damning because you got two kids raising a kid, in my opinion. That's what I look at.
Yeah.
That's what I see. I don't see two parents. I don't see two adults. I see two enabling human beings that are trying to raise an out of control child. They got all your DNA and then they got all your addictions. Okay, so now do you course correct or do you whatever? And they didn't do either or.
Holland, so what do you think about, and I scoured the Reddit boards and everything, about the allegations, the unproven, that Dominic was maybe slinging some drugs, and that maybe that had something to do with the crash. Do you think that had anything to do with this?
I honestly, so as someone that, if you're talking about storytelling, right? It doesn't align with the story. She had the mushrooms in her purse. She had the weed in her purse.
She tested negative though.
But here's the thing, she tested negative, but she also was an enabler as well, as her parents were. I'm just an opinion.
They also said, and I have not verified this, sorry to interrupt you, that they did not end up testing the original blood sample for some reason, and it was like a later blood sample. I don't know how long it takes mushrooms to weed out of your system. I don't know. I mean, I don't think it matters.
I just don't think. I just don't think if she didn't have anything in her system, what she had in her system was rage, anger, jealousy, and impulsiveness. Mm-hmm. And that is a drug in itself alone. And she already exhibited that prior. So you can label, it's easy to blame it on a mushroom or weed or an alcohol. People drink all the time. They don't go commit murder.
People but what about this?
And they don't commit murder.
So usually when there's a murder, it does not include self-sacrifice. And
I don't think
that's one of the things that the defense really didn't exploit here.
What do you wait. Josh, hold on, go back. You said a murderer doesn't include self-sacrifice? Generally.
Well,
what is murder-suicide then?
No, that's an exception, obviously.
Okay. Yeah. But this was murder-suicide.
That's what I think too.
Okay,
She didn't care. She didn't care about her life.
I think she intended.
Yeah, I think she thought she was going to die and it was going to be okay. And so I'm just.
So do you think that her intent was murder-suicide, or do you think that it was straight up just murder?
I think her intent was, I'm in control, motherfucker, I'm going to get my way and you don't get to do whatever, and I'm going to drive this car into this wall and we'll see what happens. I'm sorry, excuse my language, but I believe that she was angry and impulsive, and she said, screw it, screw you, I'll do what I want, you're not going to change the gears, I'm going to put this, you dare me if you want to, and I'm going to drive this into the wall. That's
Do you
what
think
I
she
thought.
planned it out before that
I
moment?
don't know if she planned it out. I don't know. I think it's been in her mind.
There's no suicide note that I'm
But
aware
I have
of.
seen, I saw, and again, I have not verified this, but allegedly, like a week or two before, on her cell phone, she drove that same route.
Yeah,
She did.
but is it how small the town is this?
Well, it was allegedly a route that she would not normally drive.
Oh, that's very
Okay.
good, Josh. Josh, I love
But
that.
that's a great question.
No,
But
I'm like writing notes. I was like,
I'm conflicted on the murder suicide because, like, part of me does think that, but then
I think she didn't give a damn. I don't
put her seatbelt on, and she never wore her seatbelt, but she had it on that day. And if you look at how the vehicle crashed, the wheel turned at the very last minute so that the impact was the passenger side. So there is a piece of me that's like, maybe she didn't want to die, but she didn't care she did, sort of thing. It's like, I'm going to do this, so maybe I have a chance, but if I go, who cares?
I feel like, I'm telling you right now, this is the most extreme form of being dramatic and proving something to somebody for whatever reason. She's young. She's not developed clearly, right? For whatever reason. And she took two young men's lives because she was insanely extra. She could have just had a crash out. This is the ultimate crash out. And crash out left two people dead. I believed at the last minute they were trying to steer her away. They could not get a handle of it because she was probably on an adrenaline rush of crazy, of straight crazy. And she did it. And she was like, screw you, screw him, screw everybody. And if I die, I die. I don't care. That's what I believe. I don't believe it's any further. She didn't plan it. She maybe planned it. That's why she keeps saying, folding her arms with her new accent and saying, I'm not a monster. I didn't do this. And I'm sitting here going, oh, sweetheart, you did.
And you are.
You did. You became the monster in the moment. And that's why we're watching this, because that is the split second change that happens with people if they're not dealing with psychosis or drug abuse, liquor, whatever it is. And her parents are, hey, by the way, you made the UK news. And it only enables her, right? And I wrote this one note down, Josh. 3 lives, the judge, right? Let's go back to the semantics of the legal aspect really quick, because I wrote this note. The only person that got up there and said, you didn't change 3 lives. You changed a community.
Very
Thought
cool.
on that.
Well, I wish that the judge would have had this, the conviction to do what she said. I mean, if you really believe that judge and that, the two victims in this case have equal value, they deserve a consecutive sentence. That is, at least 15 years for each victim, which did not occur. But like we said earlier in the show, fate has a funny way of showing its face. And, her desperate attempt for a new trial was waylaid by filing the appeal a day short. So a day late, a buck short, and you're staying in prison.
I guess it'd be a peso short for her right now. And that's crazy to me, Josh, because I used to work appeal cases, and like those dates are hammered into you, and you don't mess around with that. So like, how does that even happen? How does that even
It's because it was a leap year or something. There was an excuse in there I read about.
Are you serious?
So they had an excuse. Yeah. And they're appealing the decision right now to the Ohio State Supreme Court, saying that there were extraordinary circumstances that justified, the day late or whatever.
The fact that you can't count, that's a justifiable. I don't get it.
Well, Claudia, can I ask you a question? Can you button up something? Because whatever, from a victim's perspective, right? You know, we have we're talking a lot about this Mackenzie and whatever, because she's getting her showtime. Congratulations, world, whatever. Screw you. But from a victim's perspective, what would you say to the parents, the friends, the family of these two young men that she's if she lives her life, I hope she lives her life in hell. I hope she survives so she can live in hell. Congratulations to her. Right? But for these two young men, lives lost, can you speak on that?
Yes. I mean, for me personally, God has a lot to do with it, but I won't speak on that perspective because I know that everybody doesn't feel that way. What I can say, though, is when you are the victim of a horrific crime, you have to come to terms with the fact that justice might not look the way you want it to look. And you have to say to yourself and accept that justice is you doing everything in your power to get that person, to get the responsible person where they should be, i.e., in jail in this case. And once you have fulfilled those responsibilities, that for you has to equal justice, because we can't control any more than that, right? Like even Josh said, it should have been consecutive. It absolutely should have been. I thought that's where we were going. And I can't imagine how heartbreaking it was for those families in that moment to be like, so wait, if she gets out in 15 years, like our kids are worth 7.5 years, which I don't think she's going to get out in 15 years because she already has a laundry list of prison charges or
infractions.
She's a hot mess in prison.
She's a hot mess. But
prison, yeah.
For me, it's important for victims to understand that justice does not always look the way we want it to. Closure is not always going to come from another person. She's never going to apologize. So if they're building their hopes and their dreams and their life and their ability to move on external factors, they're going to be very, very unhappy. And it's unfortunate, but they just have to say, we did everything we could do. We spoke on their behalf. And that's all, and that is where our part in this justice ended. We can't help what the judge gave her. We can't help that she's a shitty human being that will never apologize, but we did our part. And I think that's the hardest thing, but the most important thing for victims to realize and to be okay with.
Amen.
Amen. Any final thoughts, Josh?
Only that I hope that the victims' families finally have some semblance of closure. However, it sounds like they don't. Listening to the Netflix series, the next of kin, the parents, both the victims, seem to be grasping to the final piece of the puzzle, which is an acceptance of responsibility from Mackenzie. And, they both said that they're waiting for it. And it's sad to hear that because that tells me that, they're going to be suffering for a long time, because I don't expect Mackenzie ever to give them that final piece of justice that they deserve. And I think that everything that Claudia said is correct.
Yeah.
As a victim, you want the same thing to happen to your perpetrator, really, an eye for an eye, if we're going to get technical about what justice is. So, but that isn't the standards of society. So the standards of society are like 50%. But I like what you said, Claudia, about, as long as you put forth 100% effort, to put this guy away or to testify or to cooperate, you can look yourself in the mirror and say, I couldn't have done anything more, and then move on, because life is short and we need to come together. And, maybe there's a purpose for all of us.
Yes.
I love it. Well, guys, I feel like we're going to be talking about old Mackenzie Shirilla for a while now, but we have definitely cleared up some of the legal questions, the pop culture, social media questions, the victim questions. So I think our work here is done for the day. We will be back soon with another amazing case to discuss. So for Josh Kolsrud, Holland Reid, I'm Claudia King. This is No Contest, the Kolsrud, King, and Reid Report. We'll see you next time.